Hey guys, let's disassemble another graphics card. This time it has a blow style cooler and well, it's my first time actually owning one and disassembling one, so I'm pretty excited. This is a GTX 660 3GB and it's an OEM version as well. So well, it's very basic looking. And as you could probably tell, there's some dust on the fans, which means there'll be more in store. So we just got some basic tools. We got a number 2 Phillips, and we'll probably need a number 1 and a number 0 as well, because there are a lot more screws on these kinds of coolers than in, well, the previous ones that I've disassembled. Some standard cleaning stuff. Gotta have the toothbrush, as well as thermal paste and isopropyl alcohol. I think the first thing to tackle is the PCIe card. So let's take that out. And you need something to remove these hex bolts from these DVI ports. You could use a wrench, I guess, even a full-size one if you're careful. But I have this, found a 5mm hex bit, and worryingly, this screw is loose, or bolt is loose. So, yeah, first impressions. Here we go. And you got one of these heat sinks just inside there. And as you could already tell, there are a good few screws around. We're not going to touch these 4 screws which hold the GPU die heatsink. Alright, let's just remove these screws that are holding the PCB onto the housing, I think. Again, I don't know the correct way of unscrewing these, so let's just push this out, I guess. Oh yeah. There are these 2 screws here as well. I wonder if they'll do anything. So I'm going to assume that these 3 screws down here are the ones that are holding the fan in place, so I don't think we need to unscrew them. Just these 3 outer ones. Here we go. Look at that. So what was holding onto it is, oh gosh, a strip of foam that is stuck onto the housing. So this pretty much is the inside of a blow style GPU. So air comes in here, air pushes outwards of this fan, and since there is basically a housing from here, the air could only go outside this way, and that is towards the GPU heatsink and probably for the VRMs as well. So let's disconnect the fan. That way this whole thing sure can come off. Just got some clips in. We'll have a look at that later. I could already tell that this GPU heatsink has a copper base on it, which is nice. The fins are very soft, they're flimsy. Don't know if you could tell from there, but they have a very rough surface. And you also got this foam tape, I guess, to, so that all of the air goes into the, through the fins. And of course, one of the problems when you don't regularly clean your blow style graphics card is the build-up of dust. The airflow will be pretty much restricted, and your temperatures will rise up, and its life will be shortened. So, you know, again, it's a good idea to clean these every now and then. But of course, I'll only recommend disassembling a GPU if you know what you're doing, the warranty is, well, either you don't want it, you don't need it, or that it's long gone past since you've got an old graphics card, basically. So let's get rid of this other heatsink. We'll do that by just pushing on the 2 tabs here. You could just do it with your hand. There you go. And it should just come off because it's got a thermal pad. And it's already pretty dirty, I guess, just from the dust, but it's a bit wet as well. I wonder if that's right. There you go. So this is what's underneath the heatsink. I'm sure these are VRMs, but again, I don't know. I haven't researched that much into, well, GPU or motherboard componentry. Alright, so let's unscrew the heatsink. And you know, I've never actually had a chance to use the number 2 Phillips screwdriver, so you don't really need it. Again, it's good practice to unscrew these and screw these on as evenly as possible. Just give it a little wiggle. Yeah, it pops out nicely. Yeah, it's a relatively large die, and the, well, look, if you could peel thermal paste off, that's not a good sign. Well, it's very solid. This hasn't been changed much at all. Wow, you gotta be ultra careful when you're doing this, because you have these really tiny surface mount components. Let me just zoom in there. Can you see that? These rows and rows of surface mount components. I don't know what'll happen if you end up ripping one of them off. And this is the cooler. As you can tell, it's got a copper base to it, which is just sandwiched onto this giant, well, not giant, but pretty chunky aluminium heatsink. The fins on it are, so I've got a pretty rough surface, you could easily bend them. And what else could you say? It's just a heatsink, isn't it? Alright, this screw just is starting to round off. And there you go. And to be frank, this fan is pretty dinky, which is one of the disadvantages of blower style GPUs, but hey, it is what it is. I'm just going to wipe this down, start cleaning. As you can see, some dust there, and with just one single wipe, I just use a bit of tissue to wipe off this thermal paste. But this will definitely go underwater. Alright, now we have this fan. And a good way is to use a vacuum cleaner. Oh no, not one of these stickers. Oh no. No, that's just plain old fun. The best way to get rid of these kinds of stickers is just get a bit of alcohol and remove the layer as much as possible. Get a cloth and try to remove the adhesive while being ultra careful, because you're scrubbing near these tiny surface mount components as usual. Oh, I hate these kinds of stickers, I swear. So this graphics card that I've got is a GTX 660. But it's not the retail version, it's actually an OEM version, which means it's an, well, OEM means original equipment manufacturer, and you'll find these kinds of OEM cards in pre-built systems from the likes of Dell, HP, Acer, all that stuff. And of course, the story of this card, how it got in, well, my hands, is that I bought it off CEX, which is like a used parts retailer here in the UK. And this card came in a pre-built system some time ago, and whoever owned that pre-built took this card off it and sold it to either CEX themselves or from someone else who, well, eventually ended up to CEX, and it's here in my hands. And the reason I bought this instead of the retail GTX 660 is because, well, hopefully this one has 3 GB of VRAM. It's got slightly higher clock speeds, but the memory bandwidth is a bit reduced though. So again, there are some compromises when you're buying OEM cards. Alright, so we're gonna remove the thermal paste off of this. So I'm just ripping up some tissues and dipping some isopropyl alcohol. There you go. Look at that. That's a nice die. So it is the GTX 660. I haven't been scammed there, but I've yet to verify whether it's the 3 gig or the 1.5 gig version. Now I'm gonna try and clean up the outsides of that, which you don't have to, but I want to. Okay, so I've rinsed the heatsink and the housing, and now it's dry, so we can now fully install everything. First of all, we need to clean the heatsink and the GPU die, again for good measure. Alright, so we're going to put thermal paste on. On most Intel processors, it's pretty much like just shy of a pea-sized dot. On smaller GPU dies, you need like one the size of a grain of rice, but this one has got to be in between, so let's do that. And of course, it's time to put the heatsink on. Now it's good to just line things up and figure out where they're positioned. Alright, so I'm going to lay this upside down and just line this all up with the screw and holes. There you go. And just hold this down. Oh, we fetched the sprung bracket. Alright, we'll just put these screws on first, and these two screws next. Again, be sure to screw these in as evenly as you can so that you get an even distribution of the thermal paste. Let's give the heatsink a bit of a wiggle to the side so that the thermal paste is nice and evenly spread out. And we're good to go. Alright, so we're going to put this other heatsink in as well, but be sure to put this in the right way around, because the last time I removed one of these, it was actually my R7 260X. I installed it the other way around and the GPU wasn't working, and so I was like frantically trying to troubleshoot it, seeing if disassembling that GPU killed it, and I realized that one of its other heat sinks was in the wrong way around, so I just unclipped it, put it the right way around, and it worked again. So I was pretty much fortunate that it didn't die out on me. So a good way to note is to, well, just have a look at the imprints on the thermal pad and just place it in the right way around. And it's as easy as that. Next we're going to install the fan, and there's this holder, I guess, or tab. Gosh, this is really finicky. There we go. And yeah, we got it. Okay, and this little part here clips into the heatsink, where it'll be screwed down on the bottom. Okay, and let's put in the rest of the screws. Now last but not least, the PCIe slot. I'm just going to hand tighten these while I screw in the last screw, which is right here on the left side. Okay, sure that everything's nice and tight, and we can just ever so slightly tighten these in. They don't need to be gorilla tight. There we go. And that is how a blower style graphics card is assembled. I hope you've learned something about it. At the very least, I hope you've had fun. Thanks for watching though. See you soon.